So Senator Franzen, let's start with you. What do you see happening in this session from a legislation standpoint with respect to MNsure specifically, but more generally the Affordable Care Act?
Well, I think we need to let the dust settle, and I've heard that from providers and from plans and insurance, that we really need to wait to see how the dust settles. If we keep tweaking it, we're not going to really know its real impact. But I do certainly agree that we need to fix the kinks in the computer and the exchange side. But those are going to take time, and those are being worked on. With my background in corporate America and in a company like Target, we've had our own glitches, so I understand that those happen. So we just need to get to them as soon as we can and get the best and the brightest. I think with our new MNsure executive director, hopefully we'll be able to make continued progress there. I don't expect any legislation this session. Again, just because we're waiting for things to settle and to see how things are going to end up by the time that people get on board. And right now, I just heard the announcement of another extension, so it's just at the federal level. So there's problems still to be worked out, even larger than Minnesota.
We have some real issues with MNsure, and I agree with the Senator Franzen. We're not going to get to it this year, but that's mostly because they're not going to allow it to come to the House and floor, and I think that's really unfortunate. And we certainly have to let the dust settle, no question about it. But there are some areas to where the dust is already settled, and we need to bring this bill in and fix it. We had several amendments last year that we wouldn't be in this situation today. They would not hear the amendments, and we couldn't get anything changed in the bill. Today we could bring that bill back, make a few amendments, and make this thing work a lot better. We're looking at people standing out here. We're looking at people losing their insurance. We had a rash of people lost their insurance. They're losing their providers. They have a very limited number of places they can go to get their coverage because of the number of insurers that are carrying some of these plans out in some of these areas. And what we have to do is get this bill back in and get it fixed. We're going to have another rash of people very likely lose a bunch of their insurance again come September. And we can't have these folks that are currently insured have a policy they like, and now we're telling them that they can't keep the policy. They can go get another policy because the existing conditions waivers and stuff like that have been taken out. So they can go buy another policy, but they're looking at paying $3,000 to $5,000 a year more. These people can't afford it. We need to get in and get that fixed, and I would just ask that we bring it back in. Some areas we need to let the dust settle. Other areas the dust is settled. Let's get this thing fixed so that we stop doing harm to more of the people come September, October.
We've got more people on board that are taking the calls. The calls are being handled quicker now. The computer glitches are being fixed. Those kinds of things are being taken care of. But there's bigger problems. And the DFL is actually burying their heads in the sand. This legislature is burying their heads this legislative session and don't want to deal with this issue. They need to deal with this issue, and they're not going to. You won't see any changes in this law this year. We offered some amendments on the House floor today to the tax relief bill that we passed, and thank God we did pass that bill. We can talk about that a little bit later if you want.
We should talk about that, actually.
But we did offer some amendments that were going to tweak this thing, and it was going to fix some major problems, and they were shot down. So that just tells me that we're not going to deal with it this legislative session, which is an absolute shame. Why are we doing Obamacare, or why are we doing MNsure in the first place? What was the original point? The original point was to put people on, get health care for folks that couldn't afford the insurance. If you don't have the insurance, we're going to insure you. We're going to have some kind of a program where everybody's going to pay into a system where people that can't afford insurance are now going to have insurance. That's what I thought MNsure and Obamacare was all about, getting people insured so they could have health care. Well, now what are we doing? Now we're actually going to have people that are not going to be able to afford insurance because of MNsure and Obamacare, because it's going to be more expensive for everybody. We're going to have less people insured. We're nowhere near the goal that MNsure was trying to achieve by this time. I think they wanted to have something like 80,000 people or something signed up, and they've got like 30,000 signed up, something like that. So it is an absolute failure that we're not addressing this issue. Something's got to be done. I'm not on those committees, but something needs to be done. This thing got messed up. We need to fix it.
Well, I think there may be some problems with it, but I think it's a much harder fix than some of the bills that were proposed or amendments that were proposed today. I think if it needs fixes, we need to really spend some time figuring out what those problems are and how to best resolve them. I actually am a supporter of single-payer universal health care, so I wasn't necessarily a strong supporter of this type of way to deal with underinsured or uninsured folks out there. But I'd still like to see, because there are positive things in the Affordable Care Act that do move healthcare forward, and I want to make sure that people have access and can get the healthcare that they need. But I think we need time to work through those things in a way where we can have a rational discussion and work our way through it. I don't think necessarily it works to just add an amendment here or there and not really understand the repercussions of all of that. Yes, there are probably going to be fixes that need to happen, but I think we also need to see how it shakes out.
And for the record, I voted for a lot of those amendments, too. It's a matter of looking at it. I agree with Representative Bai to actually look at it more holistically and hearing from the experts. They really do want us to stay away from it and take some time. But there are some things that we're going to have to get back to. Obviously, we're going to have to make some adjustments. But I think it's if we keep making adjustments without seeing how it actually impacts and how it actually rolls out, it's going to be harder to really know what we need to adjust.
Well, if I could just follow up a little on that. The Legislative Auditor's Office, they did an audit on it, and they felt that there was really some severe concerns about the bill. An outside auditing firm, the most recent audit, they just stated that they felt that the thing was so far off center that we'd be better off to scrap it and restart again. It would be much cheaper, provide much better coverage, and be much faster to be done. With that said, there's got to be somewhere in the middle that we can get this thing on track. And I agree with you. You can't throw amendment in here, amendment in there. But last year when that bill was being devised, these amendments weren't just something somebody pulled out of their pocket. These were folks that were involved in the system, understood the system, and were bringing in amendments to build the system so that it would work much clearer than it is now. And what happened last year is we passed a bill that would not allow anybody that was in the industry to participate. So with doing that, we got a bill that's not working, and we need to get people involved that understand the process, understand the bill, and correct it, and move the thing forward. And that's what we're not willing to do. And I'm not saying scrap the thing and throw it away. I think that the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, what you want to call it, is probably here to stay. It's the law of the land now. But then with that said, let's step forward and do the responsible thing as legislatures. Let's get this thing back on the floor. Let's fix it. We've got people out there that are pretty smart and understand how to fix it. And it may not be just doing a little amendment here, a little amendment there. Maybe there's some sections we're going to have to get very serious about changing. But we should have the will to get out there and do that. It's the people that we're hurting.
Yeah, I agree that there may be some fixes that need to be taken care of, and hopefully we can have an honest discussion about it. But it's been in an environment where there's been a lot of political game playing with the whole thing, and I think how many times in the federal level did they vote to repeal it? And I think there's suspicion, there's a lack of trust that we can really work together. I hope we can. I really do hope we can work together.
Well, I hope we can change it too, because the reality is that everybody is paying more for their insurance now.
I don't think that's true.
That's absolutely true.
I don't think everybody
the state of Minnesota,
no.
they keep saying over and over again that the state of Minnesota under MNsure is going to have the cheapest rates in the country. Okay, well, that's fine. But in the long run, those rates are going to go up, no doubt about it. And everybody else's rates are going to have to pay for this system. It's going to be a higher deductibles and higher premiums, no doubt about it.
Well, because you're paying for a more robust package, and you weren't before. So that's part of the law.
Things that we don't need.
Well, I would say preventive services is actually something I would hope everybody needs and actually saves money for the state.
Well, you certainly are paying for a more robust package. And that's where one of the problems is that we have people that have chosen not to have that robust of a package. They're perfectly happy with their health plan. They're very intelligent individuals. They understand what they're buying. And those folks lost their policies because they didn't qualify. They didn't have the robust things that you're talking about. So now they had to come back in the marketplace. To buy a policy wasn't the issue. It was to be able to afford to pay for it. You're stating, that you don't feel that all policies went up, and you're probably right. There are certainly some folks that have gotten insurance a lot cheaper than they had. But a lot of that is the fact that they've got the credit. So if you look at the credit system, that's what's changing that. But where we're really getting into trouble is we don't have the participation. If we take a look at what we need by April 1st, we needed 1,313, it's kind of an odd number, small business to be involved. We have about 120 now. We needed 140,000 people to be in the program. We're considerably less than that. We needed 70,000 people to buy in through the MNsure a private policy. We're sitting at about 30,000. The problem is that we've got the participation is so low that we're just not able to fund this, so we have to find the money. And already we've shifted $403 million out of the Affordable Care Act. That's already been shifted. So where are we going to come up with the dollars if we don't fix the thing?
Well, I think, again, we have to give it time to really see what's going to happen. Massachusetts had a similar problem where their numbers were slow to take on, but I think they've seen some successes and things have turned around for them. But I just think that we do need to make sure how it's working, how it's going to work, before we jump in and change things. And let's give it some time. Let's talk seriously about how we might be able to address some of the concerns that you have. But to make blanket statements that everybody's got it worse. I mean, one of the things is with policies where they're more robust. People don't think they need things until they actually need them. I mean, there are people who. We have insurance to protect against problems we don't currently have, but we may have later on, as well as the things that are bothering us.
And I fully understand your comment, but when I have insurance agencies that sell health insurance telling me they lost their policy, these are the professionals selling it. They ought to know. They're smart enough to know what they need. So I don't think we need, I don't think we need Uncle Sam to be our big brother. I don't think the state of Minnesota has to tell a lot of our people out there that are buying health insurance how the process works. A lot of those folks fully understand it, fully knew what they were buying. And what we have to look at is how much more damage do we do before we try to fix it. And you can say we got to let the thing work. Absolutely. There's some areas where we cannot predict how it's going to work, and I fully understand that. There are other areas you can see the direction it's going, and you can see the next roadblock. We need to step in and try to fix those.
And we will probably have the opportunity to do that in the weeks ahead.